All right, y'all, I'm gonna do a quick video on my favorite wintertime jig setup. So this time of the year it's cold. I mean, see, I'm bundled up. We're about to have a massive cold front come across the southeast. So in the month of January, if you're doing some bass fishing and looking to catch some fish or get a really big bite, you need to get your finesse jig out of the box and tie that bad boy on. So my setup right here is just a little, this is a 1/2 ounce little ball head finesse jig. And you can see I got a pretty natural, I was fishing some really clean water the other day. So you can see little 1/2 ounce finesse jig, got a good strong hook in it, and then this is going to be one of the 2 trailers that I talk about in this video. That's just a little chunk green pumpkin. I think it's got some green pumpkin blue, and if you'll notice, I added a little bit of orange to it. I always like to add a little color because I think if I'm dragging a jig real slow, I'm chunking that thing out and real slow dragging it back, like counting every rock on the bottom. So if a fish comes up and really inspects it, I like to add that little bit of extra color. That way it might get me a couple extra bites. But on my rod, this right here is a Falcon jig rod. And if you have some old school fishing knowledge, if there's this thing called a Eakins jig back in the day, which is this jig right here, old school Eakins jig, and they actually designed a rod with Falcon. I think it's called the Eakins jig special. Now, if I had one of those, I'd really be happy, but I think this is just the newer version of that. So this rod is a 6'10" medium heavy, and you can see right there, it is for a finesse jig. So my grandfather, he had one of these rods a long time ago and threw that Eakins jig. So this is just the 2025 version of it. So like I said, 6'10", medium heavy. It's a finesse jig rod, and I'll throw a 3/8 to a 1/2 ounce. And obviously, if you've got really dirty water, you can go to a darker, like a black and blue, black and chartreuse, black and red. But pretty much, I'll throw that green pumpkin or some variation of green pumpkin 75% of the time, and then I will switch to those darker colors if I have to. And then this right here, just a little Corrado, a 7 to 4 to 1. In the summertime, I'll put an 8 to 1 or 8 to 5 on, but this time of the year, I want to make sure that I'm really being as slow as I can. 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon, nothing crazy. Like I said, got that Falcon Eakins jig rod. It's a 6'10" rod, medium heavy, little 1/2 ounce to 3/8 ounce finesse jig, and you can see that thing right there. It's nice and pretty. And then here's my 2 trailers that I'll throw. So you just saw the one is that little Zoom chunk, just a green pumpkin. And like I said, you can use green pumpkin, red, green, blue, candy, whatever you want to do. As long as it's some kind of green pumpkin, that's a really, really good color. And I like the chunk, and I'll use the regular chunk and the smaller chunk. This thing really kind of glides through the water, so you will have some fish that eat this jig on the fall, or if you pull it over a rock, it'll help it kind of real slow fall down there. Like I said, Zoom chunk, either the big one or the little one's good. It's kind of personal preference. And then my personal favorite is that Zoom double twin tail grub, same thing, a green pumpkin. I really, really like this thing in the wintertime because you can throw it out there, and when you're dragging it back, them little tails are just kicking. Now, if the fish are not active, that's when I'll go to that chunk for a really, really, really subtle look. But if it's a normal day, like, I'm always gonna try to get them to eat this first before I make a switch to the chunk. But yeah, that little Fat Albert twin tail, that's a killer trailer for your finesse jigs. Like I said, if you're gonna do some wintertime fishing and trying to get a big bite, get you a little 6'10" to a 7'1", 7'2", medium heavy rod, 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon, little Zoom chunk, or get you that Zoom Fat Albert grub, rig him on there, throw it out and hold on. Because I have caught a lot of fish, and I've caught some really big fish on a finesse jig in the wintertime.